Network. I'm Donna,
And I'm Eric.
and returning for the third time, and returning for the second Halloween read of What's in the Box is RJ Rolls. How you doing?
Howdy. I'm doing good.
Thanks for coming back. I think we'll make this a tradition because last year you did a Halloween episode with us. We read The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury. Um,
An
and
absolute
then,
classic.
yeah. And so this year was my pick. And I picked Horrorween by Al Sarrantonio. I hope I'm saying that right. That looks right. Um,
Close
I don't
enough.
even, yeah, I don't even know where I got this book. Um, I must have seen it, somebody selling a bunch of older paperbacks.
It's a cool cover. It
Yeah,
catches your eye.
Yeah.
definitely, definitely. And I just saw it sitting on my bookshelf, and that's when I said to you, Eric, I'm like, hey, you want to do this book for Halloween this year?
And then before we started, you asked me if I'd ever read anything by this guy, and I said I'll save it for the episode. This is the book I've read by this guy, but only like the first chapter or two, and then I lost interest and wandered off. But this was like 15, 20 years ago. So
Okay.
Yeah.
once I started reading it for this, I was like, I've read this. I knew exactly what was going to happen, and then I was like, I wonder why I never finished it. Obviously, I just got bored at that period of time, but I enjoyed this one. I thought it was a fun
Yeah.
read.
Yeah. RJ, had you read anything by this author before?
I don't think I've read anything by him, but I've had the Kindle trilogy because this is the first book of a trilogy purchased for like 7 years. I think it was like dated from 2017 when I bought it.
Oh
So
gosh.
definitely been on my TBR, but Um, I think I own a few other books by him. I can't think of the names of them, like some Cemetery Dance limited editions and stuff by Sarrantonio. So
He seemed like he was pretty big in the 90s.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's like one of them up and comers when Ron Kelly was really
Yeah.
popular and stuff. So he's like in that class for sure.
I remember seeing it around the same time I saw The Rising. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that's when it came out. I just remember seeing that paperback around the same time. And I remember the cover catching my attention and making me want to pick it up. Um, I'm glad you picked it though, because it's fun for us to finally read something I haven't read, and
Yeah.
it was actually good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
It was.
it wasn't like the werewolf stuff where we kept swinging and missing.
Yeah.
Um,
So Horrorween, I'll just go with the plot premise of the story is there's a town in New York called Orangefield, and it's basically I'm not going to say otherworldly, but pumpkins grow really well in this town. So that's what this town is named famous for. People come from all over to buy the pumpkins from this town. At one point in its history, the name of the town was changed to Pumpkin Field,
yeah,
um,
Yeah.
just to kind of like cash in on the pumpkins. And there was a lot of and then basically it goes into like the history of the town and sightings of Sam Hain. Um, and that's what this is. And the book starts off like in the weeks before Halloween, leading up to the actual day of Halloween, and things that were um, going on during that period.
but I thought he handled it really well the way he did the backstory history. I
Hmm.
never felt like I was being info dumped on.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
he did just enough information broken up over 4 or 5 storylines, which is another thing I thought he did really well. The interweaving storylines where we got 5 parts. He broke the book into 5 parts, which made
Yeah.
me think, did this originally start as like a short story thing? Like today, it might have been 5 ebooks put together to make this,
It
you
did.
know. So was it that? Oh, you're saying it read that way too? I wasn't sure if
Yeah,
anybody knew if it was originally
it
shorts.
was.
Okay.
Yep. So part one is what's it called?
About the writer and his wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, so part one is Something's Coming. And it's about a writer and his wife, and Hornets. And that actually was published as Hornets in 2001.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
So I'm glad one of us did some research.
Yeah. The second part is False Leads Part 2, and that was published as The Pumpkin Boy in 2005.
Okay. Yeah, so definitely. I mean, it read this way too. And but he did it in a smart enough
Yeah.
fashion that you didn't 100% feel like you were being
So yeah.
jammed together. They tie it together enough that you could kind of get a good vibe with it, I guess. I don't know. A flow. The flow was good.
Yeah, the flow is great. And then parts 3 through 5 were published as Orange Field in 2000 and uh 2002. So it's kind of like, which is kind of weird, that that would come before The Pumpkin Boy. And I've got a tickle in my throat. I'm sorry.
Pumpkin Boy.
Yeah.
I want to
So
say
with
I want to say Hornets was like a cemetery dance novella or something.
feels like it could have
Because
been.
because
Yeah.
when I read it, y'all say it flows well, but that first section is the longest section with the writer and his wife. It's probably for me it was like a third of the book around there, right around there.
Was it?
And it did feel a little separated because it's just their story.
100%. That is true.
Yeah.
It is separate. The
Hmm.
only thing that ties it together is that the cop pops up with the
Grant.
pumpkin
Yep.
and they
Yeah.
tie it together that way. But you're right. And then you got a little, well, without the writer, we wouldn't even be introduced to Sam. So that introduces the idea of Sam throughout the whole thing, because he makes him into a child character, even though he's talking about, what was it,
Yeah.
Sam Heen?
Sam
Sam
Hain. Sammy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Salwyn. Salwyn.
Samhain.
now I'll tell you this, I don't find hornets scary. And I get that they can do what they can do. I mean, Dawn's allergic to hornets, so if she gets stung, but I deal with them all the time here, clearing up nests and things like that. So the whole time the way he was freaking out over hornets, I was not,
Yeah.
I wasn't feeling it as something scary. Now at the end, when the wife
Yeah.
comes out of the thing and it's just a skeleton with hornets on it, then yeah, that's a little more
Yeah.
Yeah.
supernatural and stuff. But I wasn't sure where we were going with the hornets. I didn't, I was like, I was just tying into to anything at all, other than the fact that he used it to um, end the writer, so he didn't have to deal with him anymore. Which
Yeah.
Yeah.
doesn't that make you wonder? Because at the end of this whole story thing, you have the two voices talking to each other, and they don't tell us who they are.
Hmm.
And he's like, I took care of the writer, and I got so it makes you wonder what the writer was supposed to, what part he might have played if he had survived.
Yeah.
Was he going to be somebody that stepped up, or was he supposed to be one of the sacrifices? And so um, it's an interesting thought process to try and figure out how he was trying to connect all the pieces with obvious stuff that wasn't connected fully.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
really liked that part. I found it very creepy with the bugs, the hornets getting into the house. So this part was basically about Peter. He's an author. He doesn't have a great relationship with his wife, and all of a sudden his house just
Well, but he
starts
also
getting
thinks his wife's been cheating with his
been
agent. So I mean, he
cheating
has a
with his
good
agent.
reason.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, when the hornets start coming in the house and he hears the buzzing in the walls, and
I mean, I
that
get
was
it.
like, yeah,
I had would be unsettling, I guess, but I've had hornets in the house. They just appear. You don't know
Yeah.
how they get there.
That's what
Um,
happened to him. They just kept coming and coming and
yeah, and
coming
I
and
guess I could see that,
coming.
but it just seemed like he overreacted the way he was just almost maniacal in his reaction to it. Um, but then at the end, when his wife disappears and she's gone for a while, and the cop keeps coming back and saying, usually in cases like this, we look at the husband, and he
Yeah,
doesn't have a good anything. I was just writing the whole time.
yeah,
And she left her clothes behind and all the stuff, and her car's left behind, and it's like, I don't know. Wouldn't that be the first thing you'd done, is walk around the property and checked every building and stuff just in
yeah,
case?
yeah,
So
yeah.
that did seem like a weird
He
thing to have happen. So
yeah,
yeah.
because
They
he
did.
set it up a little bit when she wanted him to open the shed door
yeah,
and he was too busy to do it and
yeah, it was
uh
jammed or something.
yeah
So
and
doesn't that make you wonder? Was she already dead? Was he discussing this with her spirit?
I would say she was actually alive and then she did disappear because
He
I
made the deal
guess
with Sam Hain. to get the
Yeah.
story because he says, "Oh, come on, Sam, if you just give me this, let me
Yeah.
write this story." Because that was part of the issue with him and his wife is he was trying to write this story for his agent.
Oh, we just lost
Um,
RJ.
I'm here.
uh-oh.
Oh, you're
Oh,
here? Okay, we lost your video.
excuse me. And then once he said, "Come on, Sam, I'll, give me this story," he just started pounding out the stories.
Yeah.
He did like in a couple of days, I don't know, I think it was like 5, 6 stories he had written and sent
Yeah,
to
he
his
started
agent.
pumping out the kids, and
Yeah.
that was the funny thing is that and when you read the rest of the stories and you see how sinister Sam is, and then you know that he's influenced the writer to come up with all these stories that are going to be released after the writer's dead, of course, but they have him as a kid, so it's almost like a Casper vibe,
Hmm.
where it's him and other young characters that are different.
Hollyween, I think
Yeah,
was
all
the,
that kind of stuff, and it's
Yeah.
yeah,
gonna it's gonna make everybody less terrified of this evil spirit of the dead,
yeah,
which it's interesting. And RJ's right, it totally it's its own thing. I mean, they tie it together with the other stories, but yeah, you could definitely
Yeah. He
see how it.
definitely retconned it, you know,
Yeah,
yeah.
like since he
but
wrote it separate.
in a way Pumpkin Boy is the same way though,
Hmm.
because you don't really understand what. In fact, that's what I thought we were getting. We're getting these little pieces, like little snapshots, and but then as you got to the 3, 4, and 5, they're written together, you could tell they were written together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Pumpkin Boy. So at the end of the first part, we meet Grant, the cop, Detective Grant, and then he has more of a part in the second part when they're investigating the disappearance of Jody,
Jody,
the
Yeah.
little 5-year-old.
boy, and that does that not scream 80s to you?
Hmm.
Where the babysitter's gone, there's a 30-minute window before mom comes home, and we just say, hey, don't leave the house.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah,
that doesn't feel like anything we would do, in society today, but in the 80s and 90s, that
especially
was
for a 5-year-old.
right.
You
You
know.
would just be like, hey, 30 minutes, you're gonna watch your cartoons, don't leave the house.
Yeah.
So
But he sees this. He hears this noise, and he looks out, and he sees this pumpkin boy. And in my head, what I was imagining Pumpkin Boy as, have either of you seen Return to Oz
yeah,
with Veruza
yes.
Balk, the robot kind of
No, I haven't
person?
watched that. No.
You've
You've
never
never seen
seen that?
Return to Oz? Oh, okay. Came out in the 80s, and
Yeah,
it's kind of scary. It's
I've
got a
yeah,
dark
seen
vibe
some
to it.
memes about it, but that's about
yeah,
Oh
it,
yeah, I
yeah.
think it might be on Disney Plus now if you have it to
yeah.
jump on there and check. Maybe Hulu has it. But yeah, it's
But
definitely worth a watch because
yeah,
it's a interesting take on seeing Wizard of Oz pushed into that mind space.
Yeah.
yeah. But I was envisioning the Pumpkin Boy as the like one of the characters from that movie. That's
I
all
could
that I
see
could,
that.
yeah, that's all I could see in my head. Um,
It was
so
really interesting um I thought it was more unsettling just because you're with this 5-year-old who's getting deeper and deeper in the forest and lost, and you
yeah,
could you could feel with that way. I guess I tied in more with that character than I did with the writer guy.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely creepier because that's when you get like into the pumpkin fields because this little boy is like it explains how like he didn't realize how like deep the like rivets went between the rows of pumpkins and
Yeah.
stuff and um so and it turns out that Grant's one of the other cops, Schneider,
Yeah, the other
um
detective. There's only
the
two
other detective,
detectives. Because I mean
yeah,
it's a small town. They
yeah.
Yeah.
probably work different shifts or whatever.
So Schneider was like he had a bad experience at his previous precinct and now he's having it go through his mind when Jody get disappears.
Yeah,
Yeah.
um
he was the cop investigating a serial killer
The
clown that was
clown, yeah.
killing
yes.
children. And I think
And
what
he
five was it 5 children that died or
Yeah,
3?
5, yeah.
yeah. And he has some PTSD for sure.
Oh
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
for sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
I will say this one I thought was written the worst of the parts. It had a lot of more interesting stuff, but I felt like there were gaps. Like it felt like he could have given us. It felt like he just was left stuff out. That it wasn't as smooth of a story as the first one
Yeah.
was. If he
believe
would have,
this I believe this section too has one of my favorite parts in it though, and it's like super macabre, bittersweet about um him finding the boy face down on the forest floor, and he described it as like he was sleeping because he had his hand
Yes.
yeah,
pressed into the dirt
Yes.
and stuff. That like hit me really hard. Like I was like, damn. You
Yeah.
know,
yeah,
that first section with the writer and his wife is super horror like. You don't get nothing until the actual reveal of the wife in the shed.
right,
But
right.
then he
There's not
goes
even a
straight into
buildup of
this.
tension
Yeah,
because the husband is so nonchalant about it. So
yeah,
even though the cop is thinking something bad happened, we don't get that buildup of because the husband didn't react normal at all.
yeah.
No.
But he was, I mean, I guess he was kind of like under the influences,
Yeah.
a way you could describe
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, he was bewitched for sure. If he's pumping out
Yeah,
all those stories, he's focused on doing that. He's doing the propaganda of Sam before we get to the main part of what's going on. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Um,
but yeah, no,
what?
but it was like cyberpunky because he
Yeah.
has and it had like you said a lot of macabre imagery, and it hit on all these different notes. So while I thought it was a little herky jerky in the storytelling, and I would have liked a little more, it still was a darn good story. So
yeah,
Yeah. I liked the way it ended up because it turns out there's a little bit of mad science, and they didn't really he didn't really explain how it was possible, but basically the killer's father from Schneider's past found a way to, oh no, it was the
no, it was
father
the
of
last victim, the
the
last
last
victim's
victim's
father.
father
yeah.
found
In
a
the
way to
treehouse.
like um connect these boys, Jody, and then I forget the name of the other little boy who got kidnapped. Um
Yeah, I want to say it was
and
Scott,
Scott, yeah, and
but that
put
might not be.
their mind into this pumpkin boy
Yeah.
robotic pumpkin headed thing.
I
Yeah,
want to
Um
say there was a one-line sentence where they called the victim's father as a like a bioengineer or something like that.
oh
They
right,
just
right, right.
mentioned just enough so that you wouldn't think that he couldn't do it, but not enough information to make you think he did do it.
Yeah.
right.
So
So that was kind of sci-fi. You got a
yeah.
little sci-fi going on in there, cyberpunk sci-fi.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it was an interesting
Body
idea.
horror.
And then of
Mhm.
course it ties the girl that's the main character for the next part. That
Yep,
ties because she
Annabeth.
watches the pumpkin boy walking
Yes.
around.
Yep.
This when it's Jody, she sees Jody as the pumpkin boy, not the other kid as the pumpkin boy that leads Jody away. The funny thing is the dad kept calling everybody Ted because
Yeah.
that was his son, and so
Yeah.
everybody that was the pumpkin boy was Ted, which
Yeah.
also was kind of confusing until you kind of put it together. I just started
Yeah.
saying just a little, one more pass, just one more pass maybe, but
Yeah.
um, but yeah, no, I thought that was it. It kept you going.
Yeah.
So, and I thought it was a good balance to the Hornet story. So those two together really worked well.
Yeah. You get to the it's like kind of like the showdown at the treehouse when
Yeah.
with the final kid and stuff and saving him. So it saved two kids, right? At the
Save two
Right.
treehouse.
kids.
Yeah, both
Yeah.
kids I think were still alive when they got
Yep.
there. So,
Yeah,
and
but
I don't think the guy dressed as, and that's the other sad thing is the father of the last victim is dressed as a clown, and so he's
yeah.
almost reliving as the killer, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so it's all kind of this weird. You could tell that that guy is not. He immediately went crazy, which of course
Mhm.
I think most of us would if something terrible happened to our
Yeah.
children. So
It
Yeah.
definitely felt like some like he was reading some headlines as he was writing these stories, like
yeah,
Yeah.
right out of the news. Like that's yeah, like that's some messed up stuff right there. Like see what I can spin it into.
Yeah.
and then he used the second story to write the cop out of the
Mhm.
series,
Yep.
and then they make reference to it. But so every story introduces a character that leads us to the next story that to introduce a character and all that stuff. So that was
Yeah.
an interesting way. And I don't know if those were all in the original stories or not, and if this was his plan all along, or if he decided to throw it all together. He may have
Yeah.
wrote 2, 3, or what was it, 3, 4, and 5, and not had enough words and figured out he could steal these 2 stories and put it all together.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can definitely tell like that last section, 3, 4, and 5, just flow so well together, and it's like a one complete story that.
It's a continuous
Yes.
story. Yeah.
At no point did you feel like when they put part 4 or 5, did you feel like, oh, okay, this is ended.
Right.
It's still going. And
Yeah.
even though I think, I guess the perspective, the character that he focused on might have switched a little bit, it's still the same people.
Yeah,
So
the
Yeah.
Annabeth really became the protagonist then in those sections.
yeah.
Annabeth and
The librarian.
Yeah, I'm trying.
and
Was her name Mary, maybe?
Mary. Yeah. And then the kid there, the other, he wasn't a kid actually.
Yeah, the
Um,
teenager with all of
the
his buddies.
teenager, yeah,
Yeah,
Jordy. That
Jordy.
kind of confused me a little bit because we went from Jody to
Jody,
Jordy.
yeah, that does
Yeah,
kind of.
So Annabeth um ends up stealing these restricted books on the history of Orangefield from the library.
Yeah.
And then we're introduced to Kathy Marks. I think it's Kathy. Why can't I remember? I just
The
finished this
librarian.
yesterday. The librarian.
Yeah,
yeah,
it
Um,
might be Kathy. That actually does sound better than Mary.
yeah. Um, and then of course, Annabeth's got a troubled childhood. Her father had passed away. And you start to get more reveal of what Sam Hain or Sam is doing. He's promising Annabeth she can see her dad who passed away. And
Yeah.
then as you're going through and reading snippets of these books, you kind of get that. And, he's telling everybody
yeah.
Yeah.
that you've
Those are
lost your
my
loved
favorite.
one. I can show you because Kathy ended up being one of his former
Yeah,
um,
She's the
disciples.
failure of 81.
She's
And
the
that's the other thing
failure
we
of
learned.
81. Yeah.
yeah,
In the history of the town, we learned that this has happened. This is the third time it's happened. What's going on in this story? And that it happened 81. And what was the other one? Was it the 50s?
40,
Was it 40? Oh, it was
40,
right
40
before. Yeah,
something.
it was right before World
Yeah.
War
Yeah.
II,
yeah,
before we entered or whatever. So that's kind of a funny jump. So I guess because they never give us a time period for the story,
Yeah.
so we just assume it's exactly whatever
Yeah.
this jump between. But it couldn't have been. I wouldn't. It wouldn't have been 40. It would have been like 20 years.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Because like when she read that first history of Orangefield, it only went up to like the 1940s, I
To
believe.
1940. Yeah.
And then she had to go and talk to the author of those, the historian, and
Yeah.
he gave her the unpublished manuscript of the rest of the history. And then she read that.
And then
And
we discover
well,
that guy's 20 something years old, and
Yeah.
he
And
looks
he
like
looks
he's
like
what,
yeah,
60.
80. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Um, yeah. So then
what do you think he
Jordy,
was promised? Because he said Sam told him to write it,
I
and then
think he
Sam told
was
him not to publish it. I wonder what he was promised.
promised, yeah, maybe the writer fame, but also, he was, I mean, Sam's using everybody, but he probably used him the most out of
Yeah.
anybody because like there was no great gain for him other than maybe the fame
Yeah,
he
but
was
then
given the
instead he gets
promise.
punished with this, his life
Yeah,
being hurried up.
it's
So
like that
yeah.
he's,
reverse Benjamin Button thing.
yeah,
Yeah. And I felt bad. So we have Jordy, who is a young man with psychological issues. He's on a ton of medications, and Sam gets him to stop taking his meds. And his friends know something's going on with him, but
yeah,
they don't, and they like bring it up and they try to help him. And you can see Josh was kind of like, he was the most concerned out of the two friends, Josh and Will. And he's like, but I'm like, Josh, just like call somebody, like, something's not right. Like,
yeah. But that's not how they did that in 2000. I mean,
yeah,
it was a big no-no to even talk about being on medication for
yeah,
Yeah,
psychological stuff. So, I mean, the fact that he was as open about it as he was kind of surprising, even with his friends. I mean, most
Yeah.
Yeah.
people would have been very shy about discussing it. Although he had a history of violence and a history of um, erratic behavior, so everybody
Hmm.
knew that he needed to be on something. So maybe he was a little chill about it. But
Yeah.
yeah, well, the person to talk to would be his mom and her girlfriend slash his aunt,
Yeah.
and they were gone. Of course, they didn't know that they were gone. They thought they were on
Yeah.
a trip. So,
Yeah.
so they probably were looking for that. That's who they probably would have approached if they were going to approach anybody.
Yeah. And I think even though in the end Sam got what he wanted from Jordy, which was Jordy was a sacrifice, um, I think he probably could have picked somebody a little bit better because Jordy, he's like, oh, I was just gonna kill him, like I killed my mom and my aunt, you know,
Well, by
like
that time, he's been off the medication for so long, or he's not been
yeah,
on the right dose that
yeah,
I don't even know if he knows what he's talking about anymore.
yeah. And then I felt bad for him when he was in the jail because they got his medication correct and he started remembering
Yeah.
what he had done. And
Yeah. Then he gets a visit from Sam, I guess, through the door and gets talked out of what is it?
They give him the candy corn slash pills
yeah,
Yeah.
and tells him to take that and he'll forget everything if he does that.
Yeah, that
yeah.
was nice.
Well,
But
no, the meds would make him remember, but in order for him to forget, he had to kill himself.
Yeah.
yeah, I guess that's what it was. Yeah. Because
Yeah,
that was kind of the same storyline with the pumpkin tender,
the pumpkin tender. Yeah,
which was another, you're gonna forget everything, but you got to take your life to do it kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Broke my heart, that part.
That story was very sad. Very
Very,
sad.
very heartbreaking. Like you think it's heartbreaking at first, learning that he was in the war, he was in Somalia, and was on a landmine. Um, and what did they describe? Like a piece of his leg bone, like shot up through his mouth and like destroyed his face and stuff, so he couldn't talk.
And his
That was,
tongue and yeah.
and
Yeah.
his own family didn't want him around, so he was just like living in these pumpkin fields
A chunk of
during
his
the
brain
summer.
was gone.
A chunk of his brain was gone.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then when you find out, like when you go back to Somalia, when he remembers, I'm like, that is just completely heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But I felt almost happy for him at the end when he killed himself, which I know that sounds horrible, but you could feel, or at least I could, that he was relieved to be able
Yeah.
to just end everything. And
Right.
when you find out that he actually, killed his buddy there on the landmine, um,
Yeah.
it's like he just
But
wanted
as I
this to
say, I
be
got the
over.
the feeling that he didn't know any of that until Sam made him remember. So for
Yeah,
that whole time, so we don't really feel bad for him in the fact that he's been suffering about the knowledge of what he did, So before he's just kind of like I don't want to say village idiot, but that's kind of what he is. And then
yeah, they call
but
him
it's
Frankenstein.
but when he
Yeah,
discovers that the reason the way he is because of what he did to that guy, then you can definitely see how he would be so easy for Sam to push over the edge to you have him commit suicide.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, no, that
Yeah.
whole character storyline is very sad
yeah.
and touching too. The guy that does the farming, how
Frolic, yeah.
how much he took care of him, how loving um the characters, Frankenstein guy was with um, the
The
way he was taking care of
pumpkins.
the pumpkins and taking care of the town, because that's what
Yeah,
the town's known for. Everybody's, when he goes up to watch the sun rise and set over the pumpkin patches right before the big, celebration. And he
Yeah.
gets a big kick out of that too. I mean, you could see all the simple things in his life that were worth living for. And then you could see why at the end, Sam does what he does to make him want to kill himself that quickly. And you can see
yeah,
why he doesn't have a hesitation in doing it either. He wants that. He doesn't want to live with that weight of that knowledge. So he's ready to do it immediately. Now I don't know
yeah.
if y'all had the same problem. I had every time they talked about the war, I kept putting him in Vietnam.
Yep,
And
yeah,
so I just they would even say and I'd be like, he's in Vietnam, So I was
yeah.
pushing the story way back. So I always have that problem with those things, I guess.
Yeah, it was hard for me. I had to keep remembering that it was Somalia and
Yeah.
not Vietnam.
So,
Yeah,
but yeah, no, that was a good story. I like the way that they did his, and it's funny that we had two suicides that were no problem. Sam picked those people properly. And then the last one, even with a backup plan, he screwed up the two by
Yeah.
putting them together. I think is that
Aw,
the
kitty.
new baby?
yeah,
Aw.
Is that Purdy?
that is.
Did you really name him Purdy?
Now it's Mizzy.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say. I was hoping to imprint Purdy on the cat as soon as you started talking about it. So
She's been on my lap the whole time, but she was moving around, so she'll
Aw,
sit here forever.
that's
that's
awesome.
cute. That's cute.
But yeah, the two characters, they're almost identical, right? The
Yeah.
librarian is basically like, and they set that up. I kept by having the librarian so concerned because she understood what the other girl was going through, loss of her father at a young age, and all
Yeah,
the other
Yeah.
things going on.
I
Yeah.
think
And I kind of like I got an inkling that because they say when they're reading the history, when Annabeth's reading the history about 1981, they make it clear that they never released the girl's name who attempted suicide, for her privacy, and nobody knows who she is. But when they kept referencing Kathy scratching at her arm, I'm like, I betcha that
Yeah, I
she
know
was the girl.
it's a small town. There's no way they didn't know who. You know what I mean? It doesn't make
Yeah,
everybody knows who it was, and they're all talking about it. That's the only thing that would stand out as weird that they would
yeah.
be unless Sam magically makes everyone forget. But
Forget. Yeah.
there's no reason to do that. So, or he
I
never.
mean,
You think they
Kathy
would have
didn't
said that?
remember either.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Maybe that is the point. Maybe they forget because it didn't succeed,
Yeah,
and so
because
then
Kathy
everything
kept
else is just kind of
Yeah, because it kept saying how Kathy was like, there was just something on the edge of her memory that she was trying to remember.
yeah,
Um,
and I
but
guess
I,
towards the end, it was when it finally came back to her, and um, those two characters are my favorite plot line through the whole book
yeah.
because of she one's trying to rescue the other, and then it eventually gets flip-flopped into one's gonna sacrifice one for the other,
yep,
save her, like,
Yeah,
but so I
yep,
think yeah,
yeah. Kathy saves Annabeth, and then Annabeth, she's gonna sacrifice herself to save Annabeth, but then Annabeth ends up saving Kathy.
yeah.
we have
Um,
to assume those two characters are in the next book, right?
I don't know. I would hope so.
I
Maybe.
don't know. Yeah, like let's see. Yeah, I'm definitely like after reading this book, I'm definitely going to continue with the trilogy
Yeah.
because it ended up being that good and like I really like the history stuff that he delved into with the Annabeth character. So
Yeah,
I hope he
yeah.
gets into that and like you just asked, I would like to see at least those two characters pop up.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely reading the rest of the trilogy. I went and bought because I have a paperback. I have the paperback. Um, and I went and bought the other two books in the trilogy. Plus, I bought Hallows Eve. However, my copy of Hallows Eve was delivered in a paper package and left out in the rain by the delivery people. So I have to return it. And
That stinks.
hopefully I could find another decent copy of it. If
Well,
not, I'll just get it on Kindle.
I don't know if it's still on sale, but you can get all three of them collected together in a Kindle bundle, and I got it for like $5 or $6 maybe for all three books. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's also another one called October that I got by him. It's I think it takes place after the trilogy.
Okay.
Um
that'd be
so
interesting.
yeah. So I'm so excited that we read this book because it was just a super creepy read. Of course, it's all around Halloween. Um
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed his writing style. I thought the storytelling was really good. I think one cool thing about this book is that it doesn't lean in any subgenre. There's a little bit of the possession stuff, there's a little bit of the violence, but it doesn't get too crazy. There's
Little body
Uh,
horror.
there's body horror. There's a little
Bennett.
element of the science fiction stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it just he hits all the right notes, and it's interesting and it's well done, well connected. Um,
It was,
definitely interested in the rest of the stuff. I mean, I wonder if this is gonna be a case where he's like one of these people, like in a couple years, we're talking about, oh, this is a guy that we think's a top 10
yeah.
storyteller or something, you know?
Yeah. I actually went so far. I enjoyed this so much. I picked up two other books by him, The Boy with the Penny Eyes and Moonbane.
All
Um,
right. See, and that's
so
crazy because I've never heard of any of these, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
he's seems like he's big enough. I know Judith was talking about him the other day because she
Yeah.
was with a different one. But I just thought it's funny how sometimes these guys slip through the cracks, even
Hmm.
when we know who they are. Because, like I said, I bought the first book when it was on the shelves, and unfortunately, it didn't click with me then. I had already, I could have already been on this journey. So,
Yeah. Um, I guess my one hope, or I would expect, continuing on with the next two books in the trilogy, they will be a lot smoother than this one
yeah,
with the transitions. I'm hoping for a more linear story, but
yeah,
if he does like multiple, POVs again, I think it'll be better unless he follows the same formula, which he could, like, because it did apparently work for him.
yeah. But I
Yeah.
really do think Donna's right. I mean, she told us that they were printed separately. You know, the copyrights for those
Yeah,
years.
and that
So,
makes sense.
yeah, it does make sense that that one was kind of together, and then he figured out, oh, I like the series, and now we're going to do it, like you said,
Yeah,
a
because
little
the very
better.
last page sentence even, he knew he was going to write another book with that,
Yeah.
you know, that whole last chapter.
And
Like,
I feel like at
Yeah.
that point he knows that he's doing it as a more of a predetermined story and not like these other
yeah,
ones that were kind of in the same
Yeah.
place and
I
back.
need to know who Sam's talking to because in the conversations between Sam and the other entity, I'll call it, Sam is the underling.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he does. He comes across as the lesser,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's
and
not the higher up. He's the underling for sure.
Hmm.
So I really, really want to know who that other entity is.
the sad thing is that there's only two covers. So we've been looking at this one.
Yeah.
I think this is the new one. This is when, like, if you were to get it today, this is the cover that they would have on like
Yeah.
the digital stuff. But
Yeah.
I think the original cover, I mean, I
Yeah.
know I remember seeing this and buying it, not even really understanding, what was going on with the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah. Of course, that's the one I have. And that's
I mean,
probably
I
why I
guess,
bought it because I was like, that is a freaking cool cover.
and it says he's a Stoker Award winning author, so we probably should know who this guy is a little bit
Yeah.
more than we do. Although
Right?
I don't pay attention to Stoker at all, so
I mean, I've known about him forever, but that's
right.
just,
I mean, we know about him, but we don't celebrate him. We don't. No, none of
yeah,
us were able to say, "Oh yeah, no, this is one we have to read" or whatever. We kind of fell into it, which is fun. Those are the best books, though, right? The ones
Hmm.
that you kind of
yeah,
maybe you had on your bookshelf or on your Kindle for years, and you finally get to it, and then you kick yourself because you're like, "I should have read this first right away."
Yeah.
yeah, because this is the perfect book for this season. Like,
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, it definitely
it
is. It's a
encaps,
great.
yeah, it's everything Halloween.
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah. I love how they described how the town turned completely orange,
yeah.
Yeah,
like orange lights, and they even paint the lines in the street orange and
Yeah, the
just,
kids, and the college students paint themselves orange,
yep,
and the
yep.
kids are all in costume with pumpkins and stuff. And
yeah,
yeah, no, everything about it makes it. It was the perfect slice of October,
Hmm.
which is nice now because it is just today really dropped in temperature where I'm at, where it actually feels like it might be close to October. So,
what,
Oh,
like 83 degrees?
we
70?
got down to like the 60s. So the girls are
Oh,
loving it.
oh,
So
well,
they've been outside constantly.
it was 34 degrees this morning where I live.
Okay, yeah, no, that's great.
yeah,
It was 100 degrees Sunday,
Oh, no, thank you.
so
No,
uh,
thank you. So yeah, I'm really glad that you guys read this with me. Um, and I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad it didn't suck.
no,
yeah,
no,
right.
Right. It's always the worst thing when you throw a suggestion out and you're like, this could
I
be
went in
terrible.
blind, like I said, I've had it on my shelf forever, but I didn't look anything up. I just started reading it and, slowly I fell in love with it. I
Yeah.
think I would message Eric and I'd be like, the book is great. Like I love it.
Yeah.
Definitely going
Yeah,
to be
that
continuing on.
that's the funny thing with it because again, just like the first time I read it, I wasn't blown away with the Hornet story. The end I thought was pretty
Yeah.
good, but once you start getting into the rest of the stuff, I really enjoyed the whole idea of it. And I think
Yeah.
that might have been if I'd have known it broke into parts, I might have pushed through. But I was
Yeah.
like, I think I just didn't want to stick with that character. The writer character is so unlikable. I
Yeah.
probably at the time was like, I don't want to waste 300 pages or however long it is
Yeah.
sticking out with this idiot. I'll just go read, Layman or something. Because at that time, that would have been when I was really starting to read Layman, back to back to back to back. So
Yeah. And you're going to get all kinds of fun things thrown right at you from the get-go with Layman.
yeah, it's
Hmm.
and so I kind of wish I would have known back then that it was like that. But
Yeah.
um I'd be interested to see this as a series like on Netflix.
Yes.
It would be
Yes.
really
Well,
good broken down and stuff. It would be fun.
Hmm.
yeah, like a couple sections, like the second section with the pumpkin boy and stuff, it reminded me a lot of the book by Norman Partridge, Dark
Oh
Harvest.
yeah. Yeah, Dark
Oh, I
Harvest,
love
yeah.
Dark Harvest. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it reminded me, it touched on those notes.
Yes, I had the same thought the whole time I was reading it. I was like, okay, well, and then what does everybody always say though? There are no real original ideas. We're all just writing the same stuff, just a little different. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, it had those vibes. It wasn't as good as Dark Harvest, of course.
yeah.
Um,
But it was it was set in reality where
yeah,
Dark Harvest, aside from the influences, like the actual Pumpkin Boy itself, was Dark Harvest is full on supernatural. So
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's such a good read. That's another one that
Oh,
we could have done easily and just and celebrated that. Um, And that's one of the weird ones that I read before I found books of horror and all that. I
yeah,
stumbled across that cover
it's
and I
such a
was
good
like, "Oh, I got
book
to read this
too.
book.
Yeah,
This thing is amazing looking," and
yeah.
it delivered. So
That's why I bought it. I think I read it last year or
yeah,
maybe the year before. And I just bought it because of the cover because it had
yeah,
such an amazing
it's
cover.
such a fun um outside the box at the time. I thought outside the box
at the
idea.
time, yeah. It's kind
Yep.
of
And
like, I think, I mean, it's probably not influenced, but it's very much like The Purge now, but it was written right a long time
yeah,
before The Purge ever came to be. So
right, right,
it's a lot
yeah.
like The
But it
Purge.
does have. You're right. It has that vibe to it. It's like a it's like a I don't know, not an anti-purge, but it's instead of it being everyone against everyone, it's really everybody against the one person. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it definitely has that vibe where the whole town's trying to take out somebody.
Like you
And
have a few people that throw those rules to the side and we're
yeah,
killing each other. So
yeah, that's true.
yeah, like
That's a fun
um
read though. Everybody should read Dark Harvest if they haven't.
Yeah.
it never
Absolutely.
gets yeah, it never gets brought up, but it really is a folk horror. That's what Dark
Yeah,
Harvest is, folk horror.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a good folk horror book, Dark Harvest.
Yep. Or even a good Halloween book, Dark
Yeah,
Harvest, or
yeah.
both, you know,
Or Horrorwing.
or Horrorween. Yeah, definitely give this a read. Um, it's a great Halloween story. Um,
And there's two more after it. So
and
even
there's two more
if you feel
after it.
like
Yep.
we
I got a
spoiled
few
some
things.
of the surprises, you'll get some more if you keep
Yeah.
going. So
Yeah, like I got a few things to read, but I'm probably going to finish the next two books in the series by the end of the year for sure. I'm gonna try.
Yeah. Me too.
I'm probably going to stick with whatever we're reading for these episodes, but yeah, I
Come
could throw
on
that
Yeah.
out
now.
there too.
Come on now.
Maybe next Halloween we can do the second book, Eric.
Yeah,
oh,
that's
it's my pick
might be enough
now.
time for me to get there.
It'll be my pick.
Oh yeah, that's right. It'll be no, you picked
No,
last
you
time.
you guys picked a Halloween tree, didn't you?
Did I pick
Yeah,
Halloween Tree?
you did.
Okay,
I
So
it's
think
it's
it's
Eric's
my
turn.
pick.
Eric's. It's
Yeah,
Eric's pick now
you
I'm
guys
gonna
for
are
be in
in for
Eric's
it.
Halloween.
ear then. I'm gonna be in Eric's ear because I know me and him have read it, but Donna hasn't. But I think she needs to experience Night in Lonesome October by Layman.
No, we
well,
just read
we just
that.
did that.
Oh,
We
did
just did
y'all?
that
I haven't watched
episode.
the episode, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
what'd you think of it? Like, it's
I mean,
wild. It's just
it's very
wild.
wild.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
It shouldn't have
Yeah.
been the first layman she read, though. That was my
No,
problem. We should have read
that,
something else and got
It's
to it.
just
Then she would have thought
it's so
differently.
silly and crazy and nonsensical. I just
Yeah,
remember that girl riding around on the bike and just
the old
messing
yeah.
with the
hag.
dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
yeah. Well,
Miss Missy.
that's what I always say about layman, especially with that, is he takes something that should not work and
yeah.
somehow gives us 300 to 400 pages of just captivating story.
And I
And
absolutely loved it. And it
yeah,
was so weird.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's so weird. Like, none of it should come together. It's all over the place, just like life is. And then you're like, how did we get to this point? How did we get all these different crazy ideas and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
And
that book. So,
yeah, it was great.
I'm gonna have
It
to
was
go
good.
back and watch y'all's episode on it then. I'm
Yeah.
behind on everything. So
yeah,
I
it's
usually I
been you've been at all these events and stuff. You've been
yeah, that's
killing all
true.
the travel and stuff.
It
So,
was like back to back to back these last 3 months.
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be a nice break, and then right in time for the holidays. So,
Yeah.
And now we've got our Not Stephen King book of the week, which is actually a series of books. Um, since this is our Halloween episode, I thought it would be great to show the All of These People Are Going to Die series that came out last year around Halloween. I've read all 5 of them. They're by 5 different authors. We have Kisto Healy, D.E. McCluskey, Kat Valeur, Shelley Jarvis, and I'm going to say your name wrong, Ira Leah Lander. um, all of the stories take place around Halloween. They are connected, but it's not, they're all standalones. So you can read 5 and not read 1, and you're just fine. They are connected. I believe it was from the town that they're in. I think that's pretty much the only connection. And I like the covers because it's the same cover, but each book has a different character unblurred.
right,
So you can see the cat lady here, the vampire, just the devil, I think she is, the zombie, and then the witch. So I thought that was really clever. Um, they're not very long. They're novellas, so they're probably about 100 pages. I think D.E. McCluskey's was the longest at just over
yeah.
100 pages. But if you're looking for some quick Halloween reads, this is a great series. And they're
I
all
re
on
I remember
Amazon.
when it came out, and I kept thinking, these people using the same cover because I wasn't paying attention to it. I
Yeah.
wasn't staring to see that they were blurred initially. So I kept thinking, man, these people are all just that lady's just making money just selling the same cover over and over again. But then I figured it out. I'm smart enough to figure it out. Probably took 2 or 3 covers, but
Yeah,
yeah, no, and then the numbers help too. Initially, I
yeah,
guess I didn't even pay attention to that, but yeah, no, I think that's funny. It's a fun thing, to get the people together and each one get a different character. It's a fun idea, and
yeah,
all 5 are great, indie horror writers. So it's always
yep.
good to celebrate all of
Indie
that.
horror.
So
Yeah. So yeah, if like I said, if you want some quick Halloween reads, these are yeah, I definitely recommend these. You can get them all on Kindle, Kindle Unlimited, paperback if you want, all on Amazon.
Nice.
So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. And RJ, thanks for coming back. I can't wait
yeah,
to find out what we're going to read for next Halloween.
Of course, Eric will
I'll have to come up with
dig
something
something up
off the wall.
crazy.
Yeah. So, all right. And hope you all have a great Halloween. Check out Horrorween, check out Dark Harvest, and check out All These People Are Going to Die.
Check out that kitty.
Check out that kitty.
Oh,
Oh,
He's
so
sleeping.
sweet. Oh, so sweet. All right. Well, we will see you on the next episode.
take it easy.